the age sail, when two fleets would come to blows in the high seas, most often, especially if the lines of ships were made up of the ships of the line, first through fourth rates, what you would actually have is a long line of, one or more long lines of ships sailing in unison toward each other, exchanging gunfire as they go. Once the battle developed and ships took damage, they would eventually break out of formation, pursue their own goals again toward defeating the opponent. Well, in Black Seas we can do exactly the same thing with a special rule called sailing in lines. Again, it's an optional one, but today we're going to cover it, so stay tuned. Alright, welcome to today's Hedgehog Naval Academy lesson. Today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about sailing in lines. And before we actually get onto the table and look at what does this look like, let's talk about the rules in general. Now, in order to bring this rule into being, your ships must, first of all, be at battle sail. Okay? Only ships at battle sail can take advantage of this rule. And secondly, the only ships that can participate, in addition, are the ones where the bow of the ship is touching the wake marker of the ship in front of it. Okay. So evaluate those ships that are lined up at the start of the battle round to determine if they're eligible. Okay. So this can be set up very, very easily in a deployment setting in some of the scenarios, but otherwise it's pretty hard to reach this point as the game is actually playing through. So in the scenarios where you don't have to set your wake marker touching the table edge as you deploy, you can actually set your fleet up in such a way that each ship is lined up one behind the other with the bow touching the wake marker of the ship in front of it. Again, only at battle sails. Now, while you're in this position, or if later in the game you happen to end up in this position where a ship's bow is touching the wake marker of another ship, you can begin using this rule. Now, the basic rule is very simple. When any group of ships is considered to be sailing in line, the decision is made when any one of those ships is about to activate. So you run your wind gauge just like normal, and as soon as it hits one of these ships that is in this line, or eligible to use this rule, at that point you make the decision to declare whether you're sailing in line or not. If you do not, then you simply activate them in order, or you activate the ship that just reached, where the weather gauge just reached, and activate them alone, and then again continue with the wind gauge to the next. But at any point when you hit one of these ships where it is eligible to do sailing in line, and you decide to do it, you declare it. Now once they activate in a sense together, and you start with the first ship, the ship that's forward. Now again, you can at that point decide to change level of sail, go to full, go to light, stay at battle sail. If you want to continue sailing in line, you will have to go at battle sail. Okay. Now the key is you'll finish the entire move and shooting of that first ship before you do the second ship, and again finish that before you do the third ship. Now at the end of each ship's activation, if it is no longer either at battle sail or is not touching the wake marker of the ship in front of it, or a ship in front of it, it is no longer part of that line. It might be the first ship in a new line, but it's not part of the original line. But that doesn't affect its current actions, okay? Okay, so let's talk about how the wind plays into this real quick. Because again, all this is determined at the start of the battle round. The ships have to be currently at battle sail and touching bow to wake marker, right? But you might have, at the start of the turn, after the turn starts, you might roll wind change, and all of a sudden, the wind moves unfavorably. Now the best you can do is light sail. Well, it doesn't really matter. What that essentially does is it stops you from guaranteeing that your next action, or your next activation, next turn, you'll be in line, sailing in line. But for this current one, since you are at battle sail, at the start of the battle round, and you are touching the wake marker or the ships in front of you, you are in a line and can use this rule. So you will basically at this point have to, because if the wind changed and you're forced to go to light sail, you will have to make sure you execute the moves of each of those ships in such a way that the next turn, when the wind gauge hits your ships, you're not going to end up colliding into each other. So it may mess up your plans with a simple wind change like that. Also, thinking about it, if you turn your line into the wind at any point, sorry, not necessarily into the wind, but to any point where you're going to be forced to light sails, like with real, and this really applies to using the realistic wind rules. Okay, not the normal wind rules. But when you're thinking about turning your ships and in maneuvering them, you may end up moving such that the wind is coming from the front half of your ship, and so you won't be able to continue battle sail the next turn. So the next turn, you might qualify for it, but after that you're done. So you kind of have to think a couple turns in advance to kind of figure out, well, how long are you able to maintain this sailing in line? Okay. You'll also want to pay attention during the turn on, are there ways to get your ships to end up with the bow of one into the wake, touching the wake marker of the one behind it. Because if you can get that, then you can establish a new line that you can use this rule for. So let's kind of go down to the table and take a look at, well, what does this look like? And we'll talk about a couple of these factors. And especially, how do you maintain this sailing in line for more than just the one turn that you can do it? The first turn you do it. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so we're set up with 3 ships, 2 third rates, large third rates, and 1 fifth rate. Again, I'll mention it now, as I didn't mention it before, a line of ships doesn't all have to be the same type of ship. They could be all different ratings or even unrated ships. The key here is the bow of the rear ship touching the wake marker of the ship in front of it. Now, what we like to do here is we like to measure from where the actual physical bow ends. Is that part over the wake marker or not? You probably could run it so that even the figurehead is over. You'd be all right. It'll probably give you a little more room. We have not played this much. I think to make things simpler, we're going to call this section here the bow as well. And so as long as that is over the wake marker, we're in good shape. Okay. That will also help ensure that your ships are more than an inch apart in case you guys use the entangle rule. Okay. This is really important on the smaller ships, like the brigs. When you're trying to, with the smaller wake markers, there's a little less room at the end, and so you definitely want to be able to stay more than an inch away, otherwise you risk entangling when you're sailing in line. All right, so when you're using a line of ships and you enact the rule and select the ships that are acting together, all of the ships must move the speed of the slowest ship in the list. So if you have got a first rate somewhere in here, all ships are only going to go 3 knots, even though he's normally a 5-knot ship. They're limited to the slowest ship. So these are both 4 knots, he's 5 knots, so the whole line is only going to go 4 knots. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to show you how to maneuver to allow your ships to continue to be sailing in line in the following turn. Okay, because you're not going to be able to maneuver all of these as independently as you normally would. So let's go ahead and move the camera slightly and move over here. Now obviously, regardless of what direction the wind is coming in, the line of ships activates together, and you start with the lead ship. Now we're going to assume, to keep this simple, that if this is either the simplified regular wind rules, where you don't need to worry about light sail at all, being a limitation, but in the realistic rules, wind rules, we'll assume that the wind is coming from the rear quarter on either side, or even the stern of the ship. So it's just not coming from the front 180 degrees. Just to keep this simple, okay? We know we can stay at battle sail this turn and be ready for battle sail the next turn. So the first thing you got to do is obviously move forward 4, because that's the slowest speed of the ships in the line. Okay, so we'll move this one forward 4 inches. Oh, sorry, 4 on the stick. Okay, now we want to move. We can actually, for this very first one, we can move a full 45-degree turn and not risk messing up the line. Okay, and then we'll of course move 4 more. Okay, all right, there it is. Now let's take a look from this angle. Now, obviously I'm pointed behind that ship, so again, for this one, I'm going to move forward 4. And if I want this ship to continue to sail in line next turn, I'm going to want to turn only so much as I'm actually pointing at the rear of the lead ship's wake marker. Okay, so then I set that up, move forward my 4. 1, 2, 3, and voila. Now, I was pointed right at the toward the back end. You can see how much closer I am. So actually, I don't need to necessarily turn as far, and because you can see how far up the wake marker I am. I could also be within 1 inch and risk entangling, which we don't want to do. So let's pull this back. I'm going to show you what you should do instead. Instead of aiming it directly at the wake marker, aim toward the far edge of the wake marker. Okay, so I'm actually only going to go to here, and from here I'm going to go forward my 4. Now I'm still, there we go. Okay, now I'm definitely more than an inch away, but you can see I'm still touching the wake marker. And the best thing here is that I'm also not pointed at the ship. So if something would happen to this ship, say it's grappled or it is wrecked, I am not forced to try to evade a collision. I will just simply sail past it in this particular span. Okay, then this ship, it's pretty much pointed just off of that. So I'm going to go ahead, we'll move forward 4, slightly turn, and then move to catch up to that wake marker. So here's 4, turn slightly, and then again 4, getting us right back on. Now here, unfortunately, I will end up probably having to evade collision if this ship ends up not moving for some reason next turn. Alright, so notice what I've done here. Move this its full 45 degrees and then move straight and did not turn again. Now, this has set me up so that the second turn, I'll still activate together, but it's going to be very, very, very difficult for me to keep this ship on this wake marker, okay, because I did that first full 45-degree turn. So let's just see what happens when we do that. And I'm going to try again to come on, to bring this line right back in so I can sail again. So I'm going to go forward 4. Okay. That's not going to get me anywhere. So I'm going to go forward 4 again. And I'm going to swing my wake marker out by turning to try to get there an angle. Might should be able to go a little further. There we go. I don't know if this is going to work. I mean, I don't think it's going to. Well, I'll show you. Okay. So I have to go forward first 4. Now I can again turn 45. And lo and behold, I don't have to go to 45. I can go less, and I'll be pointed at the wake marker because I kicked it out because of my turn. Okay. So even with a 45, I was able to stay pointed at his wake marker, and then boom, here's my 4. But look, I'm pointed at it, but I could not reach it. Now maybe if I didn't quite turn this as far, but nope. Because I had to move forward, it pulled me out of line too far. Okay, because my first turn, I moved him a full 45-degree turn. Now hit this one. Let's take a look at this one. Again, I have to move forward 4. And I hope you guys are picking up on where I'm headed with this. Here's my next turn. Pointed right at his wake marker. And then I go forward 4. Boom. And I'm right back on his wake marker. Okay? So, the key to enabling your ships to stay multiple turns in line is to not move any of your lead ship more than maybe half of the 45-degree turn. So instead of moving it fully from here to here, only move it maybe to in this direction. Okay, that will prevent this, or will keep it from this ship from having to swing out around it. Okay, that'll allow you to keep sailing in line longer. Okay, because again, as long as this unit stays together, it can act together. Now, in the next turn, this ship will activate on its own. These two will activate as a group. And here's the interesting thing. Remember, the wind was going in this direction, coming in from going this way. Okay, this is going to activate first, which means this is going to have to go forward straight, do an evasion, and now who knows what could happen here, okay? Which may cause trouble for this frigate and back. So it's very important to not try to cut this in too quickly. You're going to end up making more wide sweeping turns to keep your line together. I wouldn't, again, maybe 40, instead of moving 45 degrees, maybe only go 25 degrees at a turn. It just helps keep it. Now practice it out on the table and try to find, for the ships you have, the mixes in your fleet, which angle works best for you. But this will allow you to keep it turn after turn after turn until you reach that point where you want to break off and have every ship do whatever it wants on its own. Now the advantage of having sailing in line like this is that all of the ships are going to activate as one, right? So let's go ahead and we'll reset and I'll show you why this could be so useful. All right, so let's talk about why this is actually a powerful thing. Besides speeding up the game, which, yeah, it's fine, but that's not really why you want to do this. One of the reasons, the biggest reasons you're going to want to do this is to activate as many guns as you can before your opponent gets to act. So, here's my line. Again, wind coming out of this direction. I'm going to activate first, and notice I'm going to go forward 4. Boom. And now I have a full broadside on the ship of the line. That's first rate. Okay. So I can take the shot. As a matter of fact, I can even turn slightly, make sure I get the best angle. Okay. Make my shot. Then move my next 4. And be done with that one, having put damage on the first rate. Second ship comes up, and he goes forward his 4, does his turn to line up to the wake marker, goes his 4, and I'm going to go ahead and I can turn just ever so slightly. I'm back on the wake marker, and I get a full broadside. Right there, I now have 2 third rates have emptied into the the first rate. Now this first rate can elect to fire as she bears against this ship since he has ended his activation or ended his step within this broadside of the first rate. So now my frigate is going to continue its move. It's going to do the same thing. It goes forward 4. I'm going to aim a little bit here to get to this. Go forward 4 more. I'm still in. By the way, I don't really have a good shot, so I can actually abandon the line now and turn this way so I get a full broadside. I'm no longer on or over the wake marker, so next turn I won't be setting a line, but those 2 ships will, and I'll get my shots on the Santa Ana, first rate. So 3 ships have all activated and fired at the Santa Ana, the first rate, prior to the first rate being able to act on anything. Okay. Now, if the wind was coming at a slightly different angle, it could be, matter of fact, it could have happened where the wind is coming from the other angle. This is where the ships ended their activation, and then I finally got to go with all of mine. If there are other ships in the play, obviously these will all activate, and none of them will take damage before they get to unload on the first rate first. So sailing line can have a lot of uses that way. You can get to focus your fire on that. Hopefully this will damage the ship, be damaged enough to affect any ships behind it, either with speed or potentially causing some rudder damage to really make it, mess up their line. A lot of things can happen. Now, if you happen to come at them when you're both sailing in the same direction, that could prolong the damage. Now let's try to see what would happen. How do we get our ships who have to start with their counters, or wake markers touching the table edge? How do we get them into sailing in line? So let's try this. We're going to use the yellow turn gauge indicator, and we're basically going to line up the corner of the ships. The center's 4.5 inches apart. If you measure it, if you will, mast to mast, okay, 4.5 inches apart, and then, but angled this way to the, so there's a table edge, this is the angle of the ship, okay. So again, we're going to assume the wind is coming out of this direction, just to make it simple, meaning this one has to activate first. Since the opponent's going to be opposite edge of the table, it's going to come in from left or right at some angle. Less likely you're going to be able to activate this one first. So again, these are both third rates, and this will only work, as I have found, with ships that are of the same rate of knots. So we're going to move forward 4. We're going to go ahead and turn 60 degree, or the yellow gauge, not red, even though it can turn red. You only want to go yellow. Go the next 4, and now you're going to want to do the 45 degree turn. This will get you, okay, going, in that direction. Okay, so let's now move to the next ship. Now, again, only going 4. It's going to put me right here. Now, I'm not colliding, but I could be entangling. So if you use the entangle rules, this may be a problem. But again, using the yellow turn gauge, just turn to maximum yellow. Whoops. Okay. Move forward 4. And then we're going to use the red turn gauge to get this ship angled this way. Now I'll put this over here, and lo and behold, you can see the bow of the second ship is over the wake marker. Okay, so now next turn these ships are ready to sail in line. Not certain if you always want to do that, but it could be, depending on how big the table is, what the goals of the game are, or the session. But think about this, is because this is, you're getting to activate both ships together, you will actually be able to activate more of your fleet, if you will, than if you wait for the wind gauge to get to your ships that are further on down the line. So again, this is a situation where we use these rules. You need to think a few turns ahead. Where do you want to be? Do you want to pick up this sailing in lines rule at all? Where are you going to position yourself? What are you trying to accomplish with it? And know when to abandon the line, to go into your free-for-all, if you will. Every game is going to be different. This is all based on the tactics you want to use in the game you want to play. So I'm not telling you this rule is the best thing to use for all these different situations. No, it's essentially another trick to put in your bag of tricks that you can pull out when you think it's important. But again, this is an optional rule or advanced rule that can be added with agreement from your opponent. It does complicate the game, but as you can see, it may give you some advantages at certain times. Other times it may not. So feel free to use this or not. It's up to you. I just want to provide it for you so that you can see it in action or hear about how to use it. I will actually be using this when I play the next exercise. My opponent probably won't. It just doesn't necessarily make sense for his style of play. But I'm going to at least show you how it works. Not necessarily that it's going to be stellar and it's going to win the game for me or anything like that. But you'll at least see it in action. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Hedgehog Naval Academy, where we're going to cover the last set of rules before the next exercise, and that will be the weather. Essentially fog and rain squalls, as well as just the weather table, which is another whole option. Okay, so hope you like this. Share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.